Let's start off Mock Draft Monday. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, because we are going to have a lot of NFL draft content for you over the next couple of days. We're going to have an NFL 3-round mock draft. We've been doing 1-round mock drafts on these mock draft Mondays. We'll have a 3-round mock draft coming for the boys, ladies, later this week. Full offense breakdown, full defense breakdown, best day 2 sleepers, best day 3 sleepers, that's really it, day 2 and day 3 sleepers. All of that is coming, but let's start with the mock draft here. Last mock draft Monday, and I think I have really, really good idea on what I want to do. I feel like I have a good idea of where the board is. Fernando Mendoza should be the number 1 overall pick. Let's not get it twisted here. Let's not waste too much time. Arvell Reese is going number 2 to the New York Jets. I'm not buying any of this David Bailey this David Bailey smoke. And although I do think David Bailey is probably the second best pure edge rusher, like in terms of his tape, in terms of his polish, I put Ruben Bain slightly above him, because Ruben Bain not only I would argue Ruben Bain has a better bull rush than David Bailey, but David Bailey's arms aren't short. Like, that's the only thing here. But Ruben Bain had the best tape out of any of the top edge rushers, in my opinion. I would put David Bailey slightly behind him, but Arvell Reese gives you something that neither of these two get, and that is elite ceiling, with also a higher floor than I think a lot of people are giving him credit for. He's not going to be a 3-down hand in the dirt, or he's not going to be a 3-down edge rusher. He's not going to line up off the edge every single down. He gives you way more versatility than David Bailey and Ruben Bain does, and I do think that is worth something from a floor standpoint. But you're not drafting Arvell Reese to be an off-ball linebacker, flip his hips, turn in coverage, and go guard a Travis Kelce or go guard a Dalton Kincaid. So I want the New York Jets to take Arvell Reese. If I had my way with things, I would have them taking Ruben Bain. Quite frankly, I think Ruben Bain is going to be unbelievable. I think the best thing for some of these teams here in the later rounds is that Ruben Bain had that little incident with the driving that I didn't even look too much into, but I know it's bad, and that even though he was gay, I'm pretty sure he was innocent on all charges, whatever the hell it was, he's going to drop. The Cardinals at 3, they're moving off this deal. They want to trade back more than any team I've ever seen in my entire life. But the question is, who comes up here? And I think the Titans could go offensive line. I think the Giants could go offensive line. The Browns need an offensive tackle. The Browns also have a pick later in the first round, and I don't think they would need to give up this pick in order to move up 3 spots. I think they could give an early day 2 pick and maybe some later compensation just to move up 3 spots and get their offensive tackle of the future to block for Shadusi or whoever the hell their quarterback is. And I think the Browns knocked their draft out of the park last year. Carson Schlesinger, Harold Fannin, Mason Graham, Quinshon Judkins. They knocked it out of the park aside from Shadusi. But they took Shadusi in the 5th round. I bet that put some extra money in the owner's pockets too. So everybody's happy. But the Browns need help offensively. They need some weapons. They need some offensive line help. Their offensive line was really good for a long time. Now they're all fossils. They need to move up. They trade with the Cardinals, who are desperate to move back, that I don't think it's going to be at that hefty of a price. So Cleveland will still be able to hold on to their first round pick later. So pick 24, and then we'll throw in, I don't know, a 5th round pick, 146, to move up to 3, likely reject. Why would they fucking reject that? Oh, and 6, dumbass. Forgot to click 6. Propose, confirm, trade accepted. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Cleveland comes up and they select the best offensive tackle. And I think it's between Francis Mauigoa and Spencer Fano. But a lot smarter people than me say it's Francis Mauigoa. However, when I watch the tape, I think Fano's the best pass protector. Mauigoa is just a mauler in the run game, and he's not that far behind Fano in terms of his pass protecting. The dude's violent. The dude is just an absolute violent. He gets his hands on you, you're not going anywhere. You are simply not going anywhere. There was one play where I forget who the edge rusher was. But he gets around him, and Mario just one big left paw right in the shoulder pad, and the dude's eating dirt. He's unbelievable. Even when he gets beat, he has the athleticism, lateral quickness, and the strength in his hands to make up for it. I think he can be a cornerstone piece on that offensive line. Francis Mauigoa at 3. The Browns trading up to get Francis Mauigoa. And then we look at the Tennessee Titans at 4. And as much as I think they could go Francis Mauigoa here, but if they jump and then Mauigoa is off the board, is it crazy that the Titans go tackle here? Like, why is nobody talking about these tackles going in the early rounds? I think Spencer Fano was unbelievable against David Bailey and the other one, Romello Heights. Romello Heights, I think his name is the other edge rusher for Texas Tech. I think Spencer Fano was incredible against both of those guys. Why can't these tackles go early here? Why is nobody talking about it? Those are 2 NFL guys. David Bailey's probably going to be a top 5 pick. And Fano, I thought, got the better of Bailey in that matchup. Bailey cooked him on one spin move, absolutely obliterated him. But David Bailey's going to get the best of you. It was best on best. It was real cinema to watch. Why wouldn't the Titans go Fano? I understand the positional value. I understand how good of a player Jeremiah Love is. I think Jeremiah Love is the best player in this draft. I really do. I think he not only is he the best runner in this draft, not only does he have 4.3 speed, not only can he run through your face, not only can he jump over you, but he can line up in the slot and break your ankles running a corner route as a slot receiver. He's disgusting. He's the full package. But how much protection does Jeremiah Love give you? And how much does Jeremiah Love help Cam Ward compared to how much a Spencer Fano, an elite offensive tackle, help your young quarterback on which was one of the worst offensive lines in the league last year? And the answer is Jeremiah Love helps you more because he's the best player in this draft. Jeremiah Love is unbelievable. And I am a Jaden Daniels Glazer. I really am. And I want him to fall to 7 because I think that would just be unbelievable. But there was one thing that happened earlier in free agency. The Chiefs signed Kenneth Walker. The Saints signed Travis Etienne. Why would they make those acquisitions if they thought Jeremiah Love was going to be there? That tells me they had no plans of Jeremiah Love falling this far, whether it's with the Titans, whether it's with the Giants, whether it's with the Commanders, or even the Cardinals. Now, in this scenario, if they traded back, they did just sign Tyler Algier. They do have James Conner there. I think Trey Benson is still there. I'm not positive. So they do have a little bit of a loaded RB room. But again, none of those guys are Jeremiah Love, so I wouldn't be shocked. And same thing with the Giants, Scadaboo, Tyron Tracy. None of those guys are Jeremiah Love either. And I'll tell you this, man, the Titans do have a lot of holes, but Jeremiah Love gives Cam Ward another weapon out of the backfield. He's good in pass protection. He was a 3-down back for majority. Like Jadarian Price caught like 10 passes over the last 2 seasons. Like 10. I think that might be a little bit low. I don't think it was more than 20. Like Jeremiah Love is a pure 3-down back. He can protect Cam Ward. He also alleviates so much pressure if Tennessee can get on the ground and start running the fucking football. And I do think there's some guys in the second round, around where they'll be picking in the second round, that they can get like a Maxi Iheanacho out of Arizona State, who had some really good reps against David Bailey, or an Emmanuel Pregnon, who is an absolute athletic freak out of Oregon on the interior, or a Trey Zune, the best center in the draft, out of Texas A&M, or a Chase Basantis out of Texas A&M in the middle, where Le'Veon Moss ran behind those guys and had some really, really productive games. So I think they can wait and get some better offensive linemen. I think it's a deeper offensive lineman class than a lot of people think, especially early in the second round. The Giants at number 5, ladies and gentlemen. This is where I really want them to take Mr. Mansour Delane. And I've had that on a couple of mocks, and I'm going to do it again. I do not care. I think Mansour Delane is an absolute stud. The only rep I can remember him losing came on behalf of Casey Concepcion, where Casey Concepcion lined up in the slot, ran a route that juked Mansour Delane out of his shoes, caught the ball. Mansour Delane got back in the position to make a tackle, and then Casey Concepcion juked him out of his shoes again. Other than that, I have not seen Mansour Delane really lose that many reps. He's elite press coverage corner, and he does one thing that not a lot of cornerbacks do when they are good in press coverage. They like to get handsy, but he gets his head around the ball, he finds the ball, he makes a fucking play. And they just lost Cordell Flood. He was probably their best cover corner, even though best cover corner is not saying a lot when you have Deontay Banks and Paulson Adebo. Mansour Delane at a really, really big need for the Giants. I think, well, now interior defensive line is probably a tremendous need. I don't even know who else they have on the interior of that defensive line, honestly, at this point, after they traded Dex. But I think they'll be able to get some guys in free agency that are still available. Your Calais Campbells, your DJ Readers. And I think with their second pick, there could be a guy potentially like Caden McDonald, Christian Miller, Caleb Banks, Lee Hunter. They could get a guy in the second round as well, but you're not going to see a cornerback. You're not going to see a player at this premium position later in the round. And I think they're in a good spot at 10 where they could get a guy that can help them in the run, because they were awful against the run last year, in a Caleb Downs or a Sonny Styles, if they're still there. And I think if the board falls this way and they see a tackle go this early, I wouldn't be shocked if that's what we see. The Cardinals also need tackle. They also need tackle. I'm forgetting the name of their right tackle right now, but they lost him in free agency last year. They have Paris, whatever his name is, Paris Johnson at the left tackle position. He's not elite, but he's at least serviceable. They could go tackle. They could also go defense here. They could get a Budda Baker replacement in Caleb Downs, because Budda Baker has a foot out the door. They could go with one of the best off-ball linebacker prospects we've seen in a very long time in Sonny Styles. They could go with an established edge rusher. And I think if they trade back from 3 just to get David Bailey at 6, throw him on the other side of that offensive line with Josh Sweat, who was a 12.5 sack guy a year ago, look out. And if Walter Nolan can stay on the field, look out. And all of a sudden we have a really, really good defensive core on that defensive front brewing in Arizona. David Bailey at numero 6. And keep in mind, the Cardinals are a team, apparently, I've heard that they like Ty Simpson a lot, and they do need a quarterback. They're running it back with, oh my gosh, backup quarterback for the Patriots for a long time, Jacoby Brissett. So keep an eye on them. They move back. They acquire some additional draft assets. Could we see them come back into the first round to acquire Ty Simpson? Subtle foreshadowing there. The Commanders at 7. Ruben Bain at 7 to the Washington Commanders. Even though they just signed Odafe Owe, they have I don't think they have much at. I don't think they have much at. Dorrance Armstrong's a solid player. On the interior, it's like Javon Kinlaw. They signed, I think, Tim Settle this offseason. I'm pretty sure they signed like Meek Roberts. But Odafe Owe was the main marquee signing. You throw Ruben Bain on the other side of that, ladies and gentlemen, look out. Look out. Ruben Bain is the best, most polished edge rusher in this draft class, and somebody is going to get an absolute steal because that guy's going to fall because of the off-the-field stuff. I wouldn't worry about it a whole lot, all right? At 8, the New Orleans Saints, they need a few things. They could go edge, but all the best edges are off the table. They could go Sonny Styles. They could go Caleb Downs. But again, you're going to see something here. Positional value, it fucking matters. I don't know why we're pretending like it doesn't. Positional value absolutely matters. That being said, though, Sonny Styles this far down the board, Caleb Downs this far down the board, you are salivating. The reason they fell this far down the board is because I had the Browns taking a tackle and because I had the Titans taking a running back, and then I had the Giants taking a corner. Positional value. I fucking love Jeremiah Love. Sue me. So them falling this far, both of them falling this far, who knows? But Sonny Styles replaces Demario Davis, and this would be a perfect scenario for the New Orleans Saints at number 8. You lost your leader in tackles last year. Replace him instantly in Sonny Styles. Oh, but they signed Caden Ellis. Caden Ellis is so beyond mid, Saints fans. Stop telling me Caden Ellis is going to solve all your problems. I think it has to be defense here because they lost Cam Jordan, and I understand they have Chase Young, and I'm pretty sure they have like Greg something on the interior of their defensive line that's not bad as well. They do have Kool-Aid McKinstry at the cornerback position. They need another corner. They lost Alontae Taylor. They lost Demario Davis. They lost Cam Jordan. So they're going to go defense here. They need to reload on the defensive side of the ball. And if Sonny Styles falls to them or Caleb Downs, I think that's a lock. But there is some concern with Caleb Downs. I remember reading something about an injury concern with Caleb Downs, which I was not privy to. But either way, they go with Mr. Downs. The Chiefs at 9. They are a team that still needs offensive tackle. They do. Why is it showing me okay, whatever. The Chiefs need an offensive tackle. They do. And I'm not going to pretend like they don't. Like they have Josh Simmons, who played last year and was solid when he was on the field before his injury. They have Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey, two of the best interior offensive linemen in this sport. But Jalen Moore at right tackle is not the answer. They just lost Jawan Taylor this offseason as well, and that guy was a jumping false start penalty either way. So now the Chiefs, you could look at this in a few ways, and they desperately need defense as well. But let's just not ignore the tackle position. They could go with the Monroe Freeling, who's a little bit raw, really good athlete, needs some coaching up, or they could go Spencer Fano, who could compete for that right tackle job with Jalen Moore right away. And Jalen Moore, if you remember, gave San Francisco 49ers some really good reps in Trent Williams' absence a couple of years ago. He's a really good swing tackle, but I don't know if he has starting caliber tackle in him. And I'm telling you, I think Spencer Fano is going to be a long-time pro in this league. But at the end of the day, the Chiefs desperately need defense. And if we have Caleb Downs staring us in the face right here. I don't know why it's paused. If we have Caleb Downs staring us in the face right here and we're the Kansas City Chiefs, you got to do it. Arguably top 3 player in the draft falls to 9. The defensive versatility you can get. This guy can play in the box. This guy can blitz off the edge. This guy can play the deep third. This guy can guard tight ends and running backs out of the backfields, even slower slot receivers. Caleb Downs is an absolute stud, really high football IQ. Steal for the Chiefs would be it would be very fun to watch Steve Spagnuolo deploy Caleb Downs in that defense. It would be a nightmare for AFC West teams. I'll tell you that right now. The Giants at 10. They could so go receiver here. They really could go receiver here. No receivers have come off the board yet. And I think the best receiver in this draft is Jordan Tyson. And if you pair up Jordan Tyson with Malik Neighbors, ladies and gentlemen, that is disgusting. That is disgusting. That could arguably be a top 5 wide receiver duo in the NFL next season. And I'm not kidding. I think Malik Neighbors is that good. I think Malik Neighbors had an argument for top 5 receiver in the NFL before the injury. And I think he was as good as CeeDee Lamb. He's as good of a receiver as CeeDee Lamb. at the contested catch for a guy his size, unbelievable. 4.3 speed, elite yak. He has that Jamar Chase type of burst to him where he can get to 100 miles per hour faster than anybody in the league, besides probably Jamar Chase. He turns into a running back with the ball in his hands. The contested catch ability is unbelievable for a guy that's only 6 foot and like 200 pounds. Malik Neighbors is elite. And then you're going to throw Jordan Tyson on the other side of that, where if he can stay on the field, and I understand that's the big concern. I'm not going to pretend I'm in a doctor's office giving this guy medical examinations. Okay. I'm just going to talk about what I saw on the field. What I saw on the field is one of the best separators over the last 3 drafts. What I saw on the field is a guy with elite yak ability. What I saw on the field is a guy with elite hands, elite concentration, elite route runner, elite separator. You can't press this guy at the line of scrimmage. And if you run off cover, if you're playing off coverage, he's just going to run up on your toes and make you look silly. And next thing you know, you're on your assholes. He's running in the end zone dancing. So Jordan Tyson, Malik Neighbors, disgusting, disgusting duo. The Giants should take Tyson at 10. I think Tyson's easily the best receiver. Not easily. Carnell Tate's also really good, which is why Carnell Tate goes to the Miami Dolphins at number 11. And I'll tell you this, chat. These Dolphins fans are so stupid. They're in my TikTok comment section talking about, why would the Dolphins go receiver at 11? They have bigger needs. Your starting receivers are Tutu Atwell and Malik Washington. You moron. How could they possibly have a bigger need anywhere else on the defense? I'm not going to lie to you. They have a lot of needs because the Dolphins fucking stink. They stink, they stink, they stink. And I had some really egregious Malik Willis takes, really egregious ones. And now it's not going to work out because Malik Willis went to a poverty organization who's going to be led by a coach in Jeff Hafley, whose defense allowed 25 points per game without Micah Parsons. They had like 2 sacks after Micah Parsons got hurt. The dude had a really good roster of players. He's not a good head coach. At least show some adjustment. Show some heart. I'm a Jets fan. At least Aaron Glenn, when his defense saw a million injuries a couple of years ago when they got blown out by Jaden Daniels in the AFC or in the NFC division round, at least Aaron Glenn was able to produce some patchwork, get some serviceable play out of his defensive players. Jeff Hafley loses his best defensive player, and their defense stinks. Eric Henry runs right down their fucking face. It was a joke. That 28, the comeback against the Bears, that's on Hafley. That's on Hafley. How do you sign that guy? It's just a joke. The only like saving grace is that they also got a GM that was in the Packers organization. I think the Packers are one of the best run organized or best run franchises in the league. So that's a little bit of an upside, but they need offensive line. They need corners. They need edge help after. I mean, I guess their defensive line's probably in the best spot with Zach Sealer, Kenneth Grant, Chop Robinson, but they lost their best edge rusher in Bradley Chubb. They do have some good off-ball linebackers. They lost Mika Fitzpatrick, so they don't have safeties. Was Javon Holland still there? I guess Javon Holland is even still there. I don't think he is. I don't know. My brain's malfunctioning. Their best corners are Storm Duck, and I can't even name the other one. So it's just a joke. They need a receiver. Carnell Tate, Phil Jalen Waddle, boom, done, nice, beautiful. And then you have another pick at the end of the first round where you can address your other needs. Because again, I think this is a really, really deep draft at the cornerback position, at the offensive line position, 2 really, really big area of needs for the Miami Dolphins. The Dallas Cowboys at 12. They're in a pretty good spot here because they have Jamon McCoy still on the board. And I think Jamon McCoy is a tremendous player. I don't think he's as good as Mansour Delane. And I think there's a little bit of a gap there because he's really sticky in coverage. But what separates Delane, and I alluded to this earlier, Delane gets his head around when the ball's in the air. I think Jamon McCoy, and he's inconsistent with it. I'm not saying he does it in every single rep, but the dude might be a walk-in pass interference penalty at the next level. I'm not even kidding. He might be. And this is going off of a 2023 film, so obviously he has a lot of room to grow, a lot of room to learn. He was only a sophomore, but the dude is sticky as fuck in coverage, brother. You can't get open on him. Really good press man corner, and the Cowboys desperately need another corner on the other side of Deron Bland with this new defense they're going to be installing. The Rams at 13. They're an interesting one. They lost some guys in the secondary this offseason, but they acquired Trent McDuffie. So I think their cornerback room is going to be fine. I'm trying to think like Cam Curl. I'm pretty sure they lost. I think they need a safety. So Thieneman here isn't completely out of the question, but I'll tell you what, man, if what's his name is, if Mekhi Lemon, hurry up and click. If Mekhi Lemon is on the board here for the Los Angeles Rams, that is just a knock. That is a home run out of the park type of selection because Mekhi Lemon is a guy that can't break press man coverage. Leonard Moore is an outside corner for Notre Dame. If you're not familiar, he's going to be the number 1 corner off the board next year, most likely. Elite player. Against Notre Dame, Leonard Moore came off of his position on the outside, came to play in the slot, which is an advantage for Mekhi Lemon. And Mekhi Lemon had a really, really tough time breaking Leonard Moore's press. I think that's an issue at the next level if you can't break the press coverage, especially for his size and his acumen as a receiver. He's a slot receiver. You need to be able to break the press a little bit. And if you can't do that, I think that limits his ceiling. The Rams motion the fuck out of everybody. They just motion the fuck out of everybody. And they do need a wide receiver 3, not only for next year, but Devontae Adams, I think it was a 2-year contract. So his contract's going to be up after next year as well. Now you have Mekhi to fill in as a wide receiver 2. Their wide receiver 3 is like Jordan Whittington. Like they lost Tutu out. Like that's not good. So Mekhi Lemon would be an instant upgrade over Jordan Whittington. Load up on weapons, get this thing going. And I think that would be a home run, home run, home run type of thing for the Rams. The Ravens at 14. A lot of people, why does it say D tackle as a team need here? Did we just forget about Nnamdi Madubuike? Or what are we doing here? They need edge more than D tackle. Oh no, they did just sign Trey Hendrickson. Hand up. They still need another edge. There's 2 edge rushers on it. Whatever. They could go tackle here 100, a million percent. They could also go with who I think is the best offensive player, one of the best offensive players in this draft, can't miss prospect, Olavega Ioane. And I try to stay away from Penn State tape because Drew Aller makes me want to tear my eyes out. They're 6'5", can throw the ball at 80 yards, but you stink. But I did like watching Kaytron Allen and Nick Singleton tote that fucking rock. I'll tell you that right now. And I didn't see it, and they ran it right behind this dude. Right behind this dude. Derrick Henry running behind this dude and John Simpson would be a treat for Ravens fans to watch, depending who their center is. But they need tackle just as bad as they need interior offensive line play. And I understand they have tackles on the depth chart. Ronnie Stanley, and I'm forgetting their other tackle. I could text my friend Zach right now. If I checked his, I'm not going to check. I don't remember. But they could go tackle just as much as they could go guard. But I think Vega is a better. Vega Ioane has a better floor, higher floor than all of these guys, and the Ravens are trying to win right now. And he's just a can't miss prospect. And this is also a pick going off of a little bit of ignorance to who their right tackle is, because I don't know. But Ronnie Stanley, I know is at least serviceable. As I would argue, slightly above league average, going off of how my friend Zachary Rayner talks about him. Shout out Zach if you're listening. Slightly above league average, a little bit inconsistent is my vibe from my diehard Ravens fan source on Ronnie Staley, however you say it. The Bucks at 15 are a really interesting team. They need edge, but I think the edges here are just not ideal. Like the Bucks are a team that I could totally see moving back, and there are teams here that could use an offensive lineman, that could use an offensive tackle, like the Detroit Lions. But again, the Lions are also probably looking at the board in this scenario, and they're like, there's 2 guys here that I like no matter what, and that's Lomu and Fonda. They did just lose Taylor Decker, they're starting tackle this offseason, and they have a guy at right tackle, so they could and Fano, I don't know if Fano's able to play left. I don't know, but he played in right tackle at Utah. I'm sure he can. But Lomu was the left tackle, and they're looking here like, why would I trade up? The Jets have 2 tackles. They took 2 tackles in the back-to-back drafts. The Bucks could go. The Bucks don't need don't need tackles either. Why would I trade up one spot when I know there's going to be 2 guys there that I like? So I don't think the Lions are coming up. The Panthers could come up. I mean, how sold are you on Ike Ekwonu? How sold are you on Taylor Moton, right? So the Panthers could come up and select Spencer Fano and just replace Ike Ekwonu, because Taylor Moton's a really good player. I'm pretty sure he did get hurt in the Rams game. Don't quote me on that. So there are definitely options here for the Bucks if a team wants to come up because of the way the tackle situation is looking. But defensively, I think there's a steep drop off at this point. Is it too early for Dylan Thieneman? I don't think so. But I would also be shocked because they have Antoine Winfield, like they have safeties, and he's probably the best defensive player on the board. And their biggest need is on the interior of that defensive line. Their biggest need is edge rusher. So, but here's the conundrum. You're probably saying, okay, if their biggest need is edge rusher, why don't they just take Keldrick Folk? Keldrick Folk stinks. That guy stinks. 0 production. He's decent in setting the edge in the run game, but I hope he would be when he has Elastigirl arms that are just like it's everybody's obsessed with the idea of what Keldrick Folk could be. But I heard Kurt Signetti say something, and it's sticking with me this entire draft process. Production over potential. The dude hasn't been productive. I watched him against Arkansas, and he didn't have a pressure, didn't have a tackle. He was useless. But you know who wasn't useless? Akeem Messidor, edge from Miami. This guy played a few years at West Virginia. He was on the interior. They moved him on the edge, and I'll tell you what, he was just as impressive as Ruben Bain was in this season's tape. He was just as impressive. Counter moves on counter moves, power to speed, bendy edge rusher. I think he can be an instant day 1 producer. He is 25 years old, which is a little bit concerning, but I'd argue if he was 20 years old, if he was 21, 22, he'd be a top 10 pick in this year's draft. He's getting ageism down here. He's getting ageism. The Jets at 16. They just traded for Mika Fitzpatrick. Their cornerback room is absolutely atrocious. I think they made some upgrades on that defensive line. They made one thing clear here. We're going to stop the run. We are going to stop the run. They could also just go offensive line here and say, fuck it, and just load up and go with a Monroe Freeling or go with the Caleb Lumu and kick one of those guys inside and then just have an offensive line established. If the Ravens don't go Vega here, I would expect the Jets to immediately and jump all over that. But I think the Jets are in a position where they have so many needs. They could just go best player available. And I'll tell you what, the wide receiver 2 position over there is A.D. Mitchell, John Mechie, Arian Smith. I love I absolutely love Casey Concepcion, and I would not rule that out here if I'm a New York Jets fan, which I am. And that's probably what I want. But I also think they need defensive help. And I think Colton Hood is not that good. I think Caden McDonald and Peter Woods are really good players, but they just signed for Vondre Sweat. So what is the ideal scenario here if you're a Jets fan? Because they're in kind of a no man's land where best player available, sure, but there's also a lot of guys here that are the best players and needs you don't have, which is offensive tackle, right? So the Jets are in a little bit of no man's land here. And personally, me, I think the best player available is fucking Casey Concepcion. So the Jets go receiver at 16. This dude's unbelievable, man. I'm telling you. I've said this a million times now, but if this is your first time listening to me, Casey Concepcion probably had 500 yards left, unironically, 300 to 500 yards left on the board from bad quarterback play and a few touchdowns. The dude's unbelievable. Really twitch, really good route runner, a lead after the catch, and concentration drop this, concentration drop that. Romeo Dobbs is a concentration drop king. He just got paid $20 million a year. The Lions at 17, they go with Mr. Spencer Fanu, who I think is the second best pass blocking offensive tackle in this year's draft. And that sets up the Vikings at 18 for just an absolute layup here. Dylan Thieneman, safety, replace Harrison Smith. And Daniel Jeremiah said some really interesting things about Thieneman recently, although I think anything we hear now is just smoke. But he said the Cowboys have Thieneman over Caleb Downs. He said, or no, that's not what he said. He said some GMs have Thieneman over Caleb Downs. He also said that the Cowboys DB coach or somebody also worked with Thieneman at Oregon, something like that. So keep an eye on the Cowboys to go Thieneman. Wouldn't be shocked, but I think the Vikings here, that is just a lay up. The Panthers at 19. They can go in a whole lot of ways. And I'll tell you what, Chad, I think that Kenyon Sadiq is not that good. I don't think he is that good at all. They could go tackle for sure. And Monroe Freeling here, or Caleb Lumu here, is the question. Lumu plays left tackle, and that's where their weakness is. Ike Ekwonu, how sold are we on him? I think Caleb Lumu is really, really solid. Not as good as Fano, really good in pass pro. The run blocking needs an improvement. The run blocking is where you could argue the weakness is, but he's bigger than Fanu, just not as technically sound, not as strong in his anchor and pass pro either. But I love some Caleb Lumu here at 19 to the Panthers, who I think have mixed feelings on Ike Ekwonu. And Ekwonu's going to need a new contract as well. The Cowboys, unless they already signed him, don't quote me on that. I'm not positive. I feel like he hasn't reached second contract territory yet. The Cowboys at 20, the Steelers are sitting here at 21, nice and pretty. Could they go Ty Simpson? Could they go Ty Simpson? They could. They really could. But here comes the Arizona Cardinals, ladies and gentlemen. The Cardinals are coming up. They met with Ty Simpson. Rumor has it they love Ty Simpson. Why would they lie about loving Ty Simpson if they didn't love Ty Simpson? They trade 34 and a first rounder next year for 20, and we'll go 112 to come up. And the Arizona Cardinals, who have fallen in love with Ty Simpson, or is it all smoke, remains to be seen. But why would they lie about it? Because nobody in their right mind would trade up to 3 for fucking Ty Simpson. So that would be the dumbest, most useless smokescreen of all time. The Cowboys trade out. They get a first round pick next year. They get the first round pick they lost in the Micah Parsons trade. I lost my train of thought. The Cardinals move up and they select Ty Simpson right in front of the Steelers, who I think could potentially go with Mr. Simpson here, but I think that would be a mistake either way. Now, the Steelers at 21, they could go offensive line. I think they have to go offensive line. Monroe Freeling off the board here. How much in love are you with Broderick Jones? You just lost Isaac Seumalo. Zach Frazier's a beast. They have another right guard that's a beast that I forget his name, and the right tackle, Tulise Fuaga and or Troy Fatuanu. I get them confused. I think Fatuanu is on the Steelers. Tulise Fuaga is on the Saints. Either way, Monroe Freeling to the Pittsburgh Steelers. You can either play him at left tackle, kick Broderick inside, play him at left guard, and then keep Broderick outside, although I think Caden Proctor is better than Monroe Freeling. That remains to be seen. The Chargers at 22. They need corners, bro. They need corners. It says they need edge rushers. I don't know. I feel like Tui Tuipulotu is pretty solid. D tackles in play here, but they did just sign T.R. Tart to an extension. So I don't know who are their other edge rushers, because they did just lose Adafe away in free agency. So I guess they do need it, but I feel like cornerback is the biggest need for them right now. I feel like it's always been quarterback. Who the fuck are their? I don't even know. I don't even know who their corners are. Benjamin St. Just. It's still I don't know who their corners are. That means they don't. If I don't know who their corners are, that means they might not have corners. And these corners are not that good. Besides D'Angelo Bond, I'm not that sold on Colton Hood. I haven't watched Brandon Cease yet. I plan to get to him. I'm not that sold on Avian Terrell. I think D'Angelo Pond's the best corner on this out of these four. Easily, I think easily out of these five set easily the most technically sound corner out of all of them. So I don't think they go corner here. I think it would be a little bit of a reach, but I do think there's some really, really good inferior defensive tackles still on the board. So they go with Peter Woods, who was just a beast, athletic guy. And you remember this guy was supposed to be a top 5 pick this year, but obviously Clemson had a little bit of a down year. Peter Woods, 22 to the Los Angeles Chargers. Pair him up on the inside with Tier Tart. You have Tui Tuipulotu on the outside, and all of a sudden that defensive line is a piece or two away from being a really, really solid unit. Peter Woods can hit, and then I love this all day for Eagles fans, man. Caden Proctor to the Philadelphia Eagles at 23. That dude is a beast, man. That dude is a beast. He dominated Zion Young. He dominated Joshua Joseph, who's going to be like a third, fourth round pick out of Tennessee. He had really, really solid tape against Auburn and Keldrick Falk as well. Caden Proctor is a beast, but then again, there are some really, really low lows. Like he's slow. He's slow. Edge rushers with good bend can get on him really fast, which is probably why he succeeded so well against your Keldrick Falks, against your Zion Youngs, against your Joshua Josephs, who are primarily bull rushers. They're going to get up in your face. You're not going to bull rush this fucking guy. You're simply not. It's going to be the fast edge rushers that get the upper hand on Proctor. But again, they don't need him to play right away. Like he can sit and watch Lane Johnson for a year, maybe 2 years. And then once Lane Johnson's time to step aside, insert Caden Proctor and your offensive line doesn't lose a step. The Browns at 24, I had them trading back and taking Francis Maui-Noah in the first round. Now we're going to have them taking, they need a wide receiver for sure. They do need a quarterback. Unfortunately, Ty Simpson's not off the board. They need a center and a guard. They need an entire offensive line revamp. But I think wide receiver here makes a lot of sense. And I'm really bullish on Omar Cooper Jr. I think he is an elite route runner, one of the best separators in this year's class. When he gets the ball in his hands, he's terrific as well. Good contested catch guy over the middle of the field if he's square with the quarterback. But if his back's to the quarterback and he needs to track balls over his shoulder and he doesn't have 2 yards of separation and there's somebody there, he can struggle to track those balls and make those types of receptions, which is why I don't have him as high as I have Casey Concepcion. That's the deciding factor. But Omar Cooper's a really, really good separator. He'll be a really reliable safety blanket, chain mover, and he can make guys miss after the catch. And he can be a good vertical threat deep down the field. Really reliable hands, good body control. Insert Penn State game-winning catch here. Omar Cooper Jr., Francis Maui-Noah, 2 guys that were playing in the national championship last year. I think we're heading a pretty good direction here if you're a Browns fan for sure. The Bears at 25. Why does it say D tackle? Grady Jarrett, Javon Dexter. They need edge more than they need defensive tackle for sure. And I did have a Bears fan in my TikTok live comment section talk to me about how the Bears defense, their scheme, they prefer edge rushers. They prefer bull rushers. They prefer strong long-armed bull rushers. That's what their scheme fit is. So if I'm wrong in that, blame the guy in my TikTok chat. Keldrick Falk fits that scheme very, very well. Long bull rush, set the edge in the run game. Don't let him outside. Let my big guys, let my Gravon Dexters, let my Grady Jarrett's, let them eat. Let the big guys eat. Let my linebackers come in and fill some gaps. And I'm pretty sure they signed an off-ball linebacker. They lost Tremaine Edmonds. I think they signed an off-ball linebacker. I know they signed Kobe Bryant. I'm forgetting what linebacker. Maybe they didn't. Maybe I'm tripping. But either way, Keldrick Falk here to the Chicago Bears. And now we have the Buffalo Bills. They need some run defense, man. They had one of the worst run defenses in the NFL a season ago. They signed Bradley Chubb. Ed Oliver should be healthy. They have a Gregory Rousseau or AJ Epinesa. I get those guys confused all the time. One of them is hit free agency. They need an interior defensive line presence. They go with Caden McDonald out of Ohio State, who I think is a very underrated prospect in this year's draft. I really do. I think he was the anchor of that defense that was one of the best defenses in the NFL last season. He is a beast. It also helps that he was playing with top 10 picks around him. That obviously helps. Caden McDonald is a stud. The Bills need some run defense. He can help with that. The 49ers at 27, they are also a team that could go offensive line here. Like, how long is Trent Williams going to be able to play? So take a raw offensive lineman prospect that needs some room to develop, that can sit for a year potentially behind Trent Williams. And I'm looking at Maxi Anachor out of Arizona State, who I think had some really, really terrific reps. Really, really terrific reps against David Bailey. I also think he had some atrocious reps against David Bailey as well. It was some really ugly ones where he was either holding him or he struggles with the bendy guys. He struggles with the guys that have a really, really fast first step. And Romeo Heights also had a few reps like that against Ian Nachor as well. But I think he is a terrific, terrific upside type of guy who put in some really, really good work. Like I would say it was pretty like 50-50 against David Bailey. Obviously, if you're an offensive tackle, you want it more like 80-20, right? You don't want 50-50. If you're getting beat 50% of the time, you're not going to have a job. But I think that is, and I would say it was more than 50-50. Like I think it was like I was impressed. I was impressed. And then at the end of that game, I'm pretty sure that game was like back and forth. Arizona State actually ended up winning this game against Texas Tech, if I'm not mistaken. But it was down to the wire, passing down scenario, and David Bailey and Romello Heights, you got to pin their ears back and get after him. And I think late in the fourth quarter is when it was for sure passing down scenario. That's when they started to get the best of Ian Achor. But I think there's a lot of upside here. Needs to chill for a year, learn behind Trent Williams and Colton Mikovits, and they are golden. The Texans at 28. They could just go best player available on the defensive side of the ball. And why does it say linebacker, bro? Aziz Al-Shaair, Henry Toto, like they don't need a linebacker. Tight end is on the board here for sure with Dalton Schultz. They could go Kenyon Sadiq. Is this where we see Kenyon Sadiq come off the board? And I think this is actually a perfect landing spot for him because he won't need to be the productive tight end right away. He needs a lot of development, a lot of refinement in his route running ability, but he is obviously an athletic freak. He can provide you a vertical presence down the field because of how fast he can get down the field. Mismatch nightmare against safeties and linebackers, and then his athletic ability to track the ball in the air. But he's not giving you much after the catch against good competition. He's not giving you much in terms of finding the soft spots in the zones. He has good hands. He's not going to get open consistently against man coverage, but again, he could just run by guys up the seam and provide a downfield presence from the tight end position. You could line up in the slot. He's a little bit undersized, but you still have Dalton Schultz there, who can be your reliable safety blanket. It's just another weapon for CJ Stroud to work with. Kenyon Sadiq here at 28 for the Texans, I think is a really, really good pick because he's not going to have to come in and carry that load right away of a starting tight end in this league. He can sit and learn behind a really, really underrated veteran in Dalton Schultz. My brain just absolutely fucking took a shit on itself. All right. I had the Chiefs going Caleb Downs earlier. 29. The Chiefs still need some help on the edge. Who's available on the edge here? They could go corner because they did lose Jalen Watson and Trent McDuffie. Colton Hood, I haven't watched too much of Colton Hood. I'm not too sold on him. Zion Young, not too sold. Avion Terrell's obviously like he has some really, really good stuff on tape, but there's also some really, really low lows. He struggles against physical receivers. D'Angelo Pons, I think, is the best corner on the board here by far, but it's just he's 5'8". So that's a tough place to be if you're D'Angelo Pons. Offensively, they can't go offense. Like they could go Blake Miller. I'm not sold on Blake Miller at all. They're not going to go receiver. That would just oversaturate a wide receiver room with Xavier Worthy, Rashira. Oh, they could go receiver here. And Chris Brazzell is an absolute fucking problem, bro. He is a problem. 6'5", 4.3 speed, the best separator out of the best route runner out of all of the, the 6'4" guys like your Jacoby Lane, Denzel Bosses, Malachi Field. He's the best route runner by far. Not a lot of wasted movement, but I feel like it just has to be defense here if you're the Chiefs. And there's an edge rusher out of Texas A&M that I'm really high on in Cassius Howell. One trick pony a little bit in terms of he's just going to try and get around you. He's going to speed rush you to death, first step, leap burst, great bend, good pass rush moves and counter moves, but he doesn't give you much in the run game, and he's not going to set the edge, and he's not going to beat you with the bull rush. So he needs to put on a little bit more weight. He needs to get a bigger frame. He's not going to be a hand in the dirt guy. He's very rarely a 3-down guy. So that does limit his upsides, but I think Spags would find the right way to use him, and he can win he can be productive. He was one of the most productive edge rushers in the country last year. I don't hate that. I'm just more bullish on Cassius Howell than I am on Zion Young, who's a similar player. It's just a one-trick pony, and that's bull rush, right? And TJ Parker had it down here. Gabe Yakus is a really solid player. I'm not that high on Mason Thomas. I'm not that high on Joshua Joseph. I've not watched Malachi Lawrence, so I need to do more homework for sure. But I think I would like this a lot. They could also go corner here for sure. And I think that's what the Dolphins are going to do. They take bad players because they're an incompetent organization. So they go with Colton Hood, and then the Patriots at 31. Man, it hates me to do this, but they need receiver. One of my favorite receivers in this year's draft is Chris Brazzell, like I was just talking about, and that is just a real problem. And then the Seahawks at 32, they need a Kobe Bryant replacement. They get him right away in the form of Emmanuel McNeil Warren. And that is the final mock draft Monday, ladies and gentlemen. We had a few monster trades, not too much, all surrounding the Arizona Cardinals, who moved back, still secured David Bailey, then moved up to select Ty Simpson. That'll do it, ladies and gentlemen. Again, if you made it this far, hit that thumbs up button, bro. Hey, make sure you subscribe. I'm going to have full offense, full defense breakdowns over the next few days, and then a 3-round marathon